This week at Hey the Parents, we're talking all about building resilience with your kiddos. Sometimes this means dealing with disappointment, and other times it means taking on new challenges. But as parents, we are always here through the thick and thin of it all to help our kids. In the words of Maui, muscle up, Buttercup, because in this episode of Hey the Parents, it's all about building character through hardship and sometimes having those hard conversations at home, but it can make all the difference. And of course, we talk about when we were younger, mishaps with our own kids, because in Hey the Parents, it's an honest discussion about raising kids. I'm Michael Height.
I'm Sara D.
And I'm Mike Levine.
Kids don't come with a handbook, so we need your help.
Where do babies come from?
Where do you think they come from?
Is this a kissing book?
Mama! Mama!
What?
Hi.
I learned it by watching you.
There are no rules in this house. Not like a regular mom. I'm a cool mom.
We sent them to the best boarding schools. We hired the best nannies. We did everything right.
Hey, Mom! The meatloaf!
No drinking, no drugs, no kissing, no tattoos, no piercings, no ritual animal slaughters of any kind.
Together, we can rule the galaxy as father and son.
This is Hey Other Parents, an honest, messy, imperfect show for raising kids.
Hey, welcome back. It's us again.
What's going
Heidi
on?
ho.
Heidi ho. Is that going to stick
What?
around this season? Are you going to Heidi ho every episode?
Heidi ho.
Oh, man. Guys, just so you know, like, this past episode, like, obviously it's out, it's live, it happened. Sarah D and I, if I had to count, I want to say that we may have done the intro with each other. I want to say like 11 times. It all started on a Thursday night. No, Wednesday night.
Wednesday
right?
night. There
And we
were.
sat down and record, and like all of a
everything just went
sudden,
wrong.
dude, it was like
Everything.
I just wanted to call an 800 number and have them walk me through restarting my computer because it was like completely out of control. Oh my gosh, we were like. I was cutting out, then Sarah was like looking me through the camera, and she's like doing the hand motion of like I can't hear you, and then I would repeat it, and then oh man, it was mayhem. And then we rolled up on the scene on Saturday morning, and we had grand aspirations. I got up at 5, she got up early, and then I think we logged on and we were on by like I don't know 7 o'clock, whatever it was. And then it started happening again, and we're like, we're just gonna push through. But like, even though we kept saying we're gonna push through, it was probably an hour more into it. So we really started going at like 7:15. All of our kids are now like awake, walking around the house. Sarah's like, "Don't worry, I talked to Gene. He's gonna take Sophia to practice. We got this figured out."
We got this. Oh my
Dude.
God.
It was
man.
chaos.
The struggle
Chaos.
bus of podcasting. Let me
It was
tell you.
literally
man.
a hot mess express.
You know what, guys? If you want to start a podcast and you're on the edge of it all, just pick up the phone, have a speakerphone conference. You know, it's probably
It's a lot easier.
Yeah, just do a FaceTime call. It's way easier. Oh, man. So anyways, welcome back to Hey the Parents. Whether you are in the car, folding laundry, cooking dinner, getting organized or on the go, we know that you have a lot of choice for podcasts out there. So thank you for listening to ours. We'd like to send a special big welcome to the new moms and dads listening to the show, and a big hearty hello and welcome back to the returning listeners who are packed to put up with us yet again for another episode. So if this is your first time joining us in this podcast, Hey Other Parents, it is a chance for a few of us parents who decided that we needed to join our efforts together, as we call it, a survival course. We try to pick a different theme or topic each week where we discuss it from the standpoint of when we were younger, what we grew up with our own parents, and then we shift on over to now as adults, where we certainly did not get a handbook for our own kids. We talk about what we go through, we share some of our experiences, and we learn from each other every week, where we feel a little bit better because we have each other and we have all of you. So if you have any comments, questions, suggestions, we'll tell you a little bit later in the show on how you can get in touch with us here. And without further ado, we are going to jump right into the main part of the podcast, and that entails the topic of the week. Mike, what are we talking about today?
Oh, we are talking about a very dear topic to my heart. And it's tough to talk about, but it's something that needs to be addressed because, like, you know, you see your kids suffer through these things or their daily adversities, and you wonder how you could help out or what you should do. And I think as we talk about that and kind of do a deeper dive into it with our history and, what our kids have gone through, I think it'll shed some help for others out there, you know? But that topic, my friend, is building resilience for your kids, to deal with those tough things in life every day.
And just like Moana, as she sails to find Maui, and she says, "I am somebody from Montanui, you're going to get on my boat and return the heart of Tafiti. It is all about building resilience at home with your kids.
Oh, yeah.
Because Moana had that grit and the tenacity to dig through it all and get past the horizon.
Yes.
Man, she went out on that boat by herself. That scared me.
She sure did. Yeah. And then she got a demigod on her boat. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I identify more with hey, so it's cool. It's cool. All right, so in this episode, all right, so we have a lot of things we're going to talk about today. We're probably going to touch upon some of the experiences we had with like dealing with our kids with situations that maybe were disappointing for them, how we try to have conversations with them, how maybe at times it's hard to not have a knee-jerk reaction in the moment and maybe just stop ourselves and try to like be good listeners and try to build our kids up so that they could kind of deal with circumstances when we're not around, so they could kind of have some independence. But it probably all starts from our own experiences as we were little apples that fell from the tree from our own parents. So with that said, for this topic, it's a little tricky. So I think that relationships and dealing with friends and dealing with kids at school and things like that, I think that your kids are definitely bound to run into different problems, different things that occur. And one for me that really kind of sticks with me, and I think back on it, it's probably a little later on. It's probably more in high school. So I swam in high school, and I actually swam in middle school. They didn't really have a JV team. I know this may come as a surprise, I'm not a sporty guy. But when it came to sports, swimming was something that was actually like my jam. And when I was younger, swam in summers and that stuff. And then I started for a swim team. First time it was a meet, I had on like not the right swimsuit. I had on like let's go to the beach swimsuit. Jumped off into the pool. The goggles came off. It was a disaster. But and then as time went on, I was like, I really got into it, and I actually made varsity when I was in middle school. And I kind of I think I built myself up, and I really remember that. And I think that's probably not that uncommon. But remember at that time, I really, really identified as like Michael Height the swimmer. It was like that was my whole world, because like I had this thing that I was kind of good at, and I think I invested a little bit too much of my persona, and like the things that mattered to me were like kind of like parallel with that. And then I actually had an injury from doing butterfly, and it kind of set me out for the season. And then when I came back, I was not as fast as I was. And I think I had to deal with that disappointment. And for me, like that was a big moment, because it was a big change. And that kind of was like, a big swap from the timeline, or swap from where things were going for me. And I think Mike talked about this a lot. I think we talked about this offline. It's like that was a big impact. It changed my character, changed like what I was doing. Kind of, I did other things. I played music, worked at Tower Records, did other things. But for me, that was a hard moment, and it was a big moment to like have a moment where I had to talk to my parents, and I had to like come to grips with this idea of like I could keep swimming, I could be really slow and not like really be where I was, and just kind of try to like build upon that. But in the same regard, it was like I felt like that one thing was coming to an end, and I had to really have an understanding of, is there another door going to open at that time?
Yeah, like, I had a similar experience as you, Mike, and I think that's what I love about sports, because,
Oh, me too.
You don't have to be good at a sport, just being part of the sport is what it's about, I think, and just like letting you, learning the good things from being a sport, like being competitive, working with a team, pushing yourself, things like that. Like I had a lot of trouble with myself, I guess, as my image, sort of like not so much my identity, but just how I looked and how I felt, I saw a lot of these other sports players who had like these sports bodies, or were like faster. And I'm like, oh, I wanted to be like that, But I was more of like the stocky kind of slow guy,
I could get into the slow guy. I got that.
But so it made me like doubt myself a lot, But through sports, it kind of pushed myself and helped me find myself as like kind of who I am. Like I didn't need to be like those other sports jocks or anything like that. I was just Stocky Mike, who actually they called me the cheese back in football because I would like kind of slip through the line like a slice of cheese.
Listen, I love cheese. I love you, man. So like, I don't see anything wrong with the situation.
We more like a Gouda or like.
I know it's a Gouda. You know, my question though, this is a thing that I always try to like figure out, like, because I'm not like, I'm not like a big sport. Growing up, obviously, I'm not a big sporty dude. Did the whole soccer thing. Cried, got a Slurpee. Did the T-ball thing, cried, got a Slurpee. You see a theme here. So the thing is like when you did sports stuff, like, and I obviously like, and I felt that too with the team stuff. I felt it much more in swimming because like when you swim, it's like a meet and you kind of have to build points and you're working against another team. And that's kind of a different thing than like maybe, scoring goals and things. But you to the idea of like winning a meet, it doesn't really work that way. It's kind of more of like each event builds points and things like that. And, and whichever one comes out on top, whatever. But the idea is like, there's all these different sports, but like, do you feel like you identified as a kid with like certain sports and other sports you were like, no way, Jose? Or is it just in general, like the team environment? Like how did you fit into all that or feel that way?
Yeah, I mean, I tried baseball, I tried hockey, I tried a bunch of sports, and I couldn't really find the sport that fit for me until I went into football, which actually they kind of use stocky guys in football.
Yeah, but then it works out.
And it worked out. I found the sport that fit for me, and it made me develop resilience and kind of like a stronger backbone to kind of like defend myself, fight for myself, So it was kind of cool,
But you mentioned there were a lot of sports that you didn't do, or that you tried that didn't take.
Tried,
like,
yeah.
Did that have a negative impact on you? Like obviously, like I joke around, mostly joking. Yeah, still joking. I joke around with the sports that didn't take, and I'm, whatever. But did like, for me, like that was like, I'm like, I hate this. I'm just keep running around in circles and the ball keeps going that way. I'm like, I don't want to run anymore.
Yeah, well, I mean, like even
Nothing's
with baseball,
chasing me.
I was that guy out in center field picking the flowers. Like, is the ball gonna come to me? Like this kind of stinks. I don't know.
Yeah, no.
This is not the sport for me. I don't know.
Right.
But then it's really funny is I always give my mom a hard time because my team actually made it to the championship match, and they were like we were undefeated. We were going all the way. I mean, I didn't really contribute. And my mom, she dropped the ball. She never took me to the championship match. And actually, my team showed up on my doorstep with my trophy. And they were like, "Hey, congratulations, Mike! We won. Here's the trophy."
Middle child parent syndrome. That's a new thing.
Yes. So I built a little resilience from that.
I wonder what your mom felt because of that. Sarah, how about you?
Okay.
How about you, Sarah D?
We didn't really sweat in my house if you were a girl. So, in my solitary activities of like sewing and stuff like that, I built resilience.
Sarah's like, one time I started a needlepoint and my thread count was off. So
I know. Well, I really was that kid like at the playground with like a needlepoint. Like, so.
You know what? I might as well have been too. Seriously, whatever.
Okay, but you know what? But seriously, like I did dance, and that's not like really a team thing. But you gotta like work together with these girls to learn this dance.
Yeah, but there is some stress and pressure on you.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know. I didn't really take it, like, seriously. Like, I just enjoyed it. Like, I had a good time. Do you know what I mean? Like,
whoa. What are you out there to have fun?
Yeah, I was there to have fun, man.
Okay, of
and
course.
like
What a concept.
some of the girls were mean or whatever, but then eventually I kind of dropped out. Then in high school I tried for the kickline team, but I also knew that I didn't really practice the dance. So when I didn't make the team, and also being like 4'11" compared to the girls who were like Rockettes, I knew my chances were very slim. So I was like, I think I was realistic with myself. Do you know what I mean? Like I feel like.
Yeah.
I was always realistic about something I was coming into. You know, I would say, "Oh, I'm rusty on the dance moves. I didn't really practice." The girls are like 5'10". I'm 4'10" over here. There's a huge height difference. I'm like, yeah, I don't think my chances are high, but I'm gonna try.
These girls.
Yeah.
Sarah's like, you're saying that there's a chance.
Right. I'm like, they must eat their Wheaties in the morning or something. But like, you know, like, but I also like. I still would like I don't know, like I still like pretty proud of myself when I look back, like, hey girl, you still tried, you still put your effort into it when you knew the chances were like way up against you, you know?
Yeah. Now on Thanksgiving, when we're watching the Thanksgiving parade and the rockets come out, I'm going to be thinking of Sara D the entire time. That's it.
Like on the very end, at the very, very end, I could be like one of the little sugar plum fairies.
Oh, sugar! My dear friend, the sugar plum.
Maybe not a rocket, but I could be a sugar plum.
You know, it is pretty wild though, because like when you're in high school, it seems like those are like the times where like, you know, like, I don't know, it's whatever the circumstance is, whether it's like your parents kind of like maybe dipping in a little bit less, or maybe they're preoccupied with other things, or whatever version of this story, it seems like around middle school and high school, you really start having these situations where you kind of have to fend for yourself and start to like experience these mistakes and experience these things. And like one of the things that I think comes in, you know, at some point, and you know, we're at the very early cusp of it is like dating and relationships, and there's definitely like as a guy, I mean, you know, I don't think that like, you know, it's a different dynamic, and obviously women have to like deal with things as well and reject people they don't like, whatever else. But like typically like growing up, you know, in my life growing up, you know, you like a girl, and then, you know, asking a girl out or getting denied, or you know, passing a note that says yes, no, maybe, what's happening, I don't know. But like that's like a thing that kind of like is like, you know, kids deal with that stuff. And then like there's moments where I remember as a kid, there was this girl, this like a mean girl, who would like pretend that she liked certain boys in the class. And then I remember this happened to me, and she acted like she liked you, just to kind of mess with people. But I didn't know that. But I also was like, I don't really like her, so I felt bad. I felt bad, and I was like, I don't know, man. I'm like, I guess I don't know. And it's like, I'm just kidding, I don't like you. I'm like, well, good, all right, didn't work out anyway. But like it's, but like there's like mean stuff that goes on, and like when you're a kid, like it's like your whole world feels like it's gonna fall apart when like big moments happen. And I feel like you come home, and like as certain situations occur, you could lean more into not talking to your parents and kind of like talking to siblings or talking to your friends, and kind of like maybe you're like you're embarrassed, or there's shame upon it, and you lose that connection. So I think like that's hard because then you know kids could tend to like kind of like just be in a situation where they're kind of dealing with it instead of kind of finding an avenue to have a conversation. I was very lucky because I had an older sister. You know, she kind of like did her own thing. You know, she had the Barbies, I had the He-Man. They didn't hang out. They maybe went out for lunch one time, and they didn't fight in wars. But the whole thing is like when it came down to it, like I could probably talk to her about circumstances that kind of came up with relationships and stuff.
Did you ever go to your parents though? Do you ever, or even Sara, do you ever remember, both of you, I'm throwing this out there to both of you, do you ever remember or even thinking about talking to your parents about a situation with a girl, sport, anything like that? I
think my parents would have had to like have some sort of inkling that they must have picked something up, and then they asked me. I don't think I was forthcoming and being like, so like, you know, like sitting down like Full House, talking to the Tanners. But I don't think like I would be like, you know, here, everyone, I have an issue. I'd like to speak with you all. I think it was only if it was like something was really bothering me, it was obvious, and then like they pull it out of me. But I don't think I was the kind of person that would like, you know, be forthcoming with that stuff.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. I think it was a different mentality. I think that's why having a community of parents is good, because my parents were very old school. So I always joke around, but I guess it's kind of serious, is that, you know, we didn't have feelings. We didn't have opinions. We didn't have none of that stuff. You know, like
you were just feeling deep down in your stomach, and
and you just eat another second helping of dinner. But like, you know, like that's really what it was.
Having a helping of stress and disappointment.
Yeah, I don't think I grew up with like the idea that I can actually talk to my parents about stuff, because if I said like, oh, you know, I have this problem, they're like, well, let me tell you about when I was younger, you know, when it was really hard. So you know, like I didn't really mention it, but I do remember like my parents trying, or like my dad helping me with like my multiplication tables, and for whatever reason that was so difficult for me, and I remember just crying because it wasn't coming easily to me. And I do remember him saying like, take your time, it's gonna be all right, like, you know, like trying to just encourage me to to get over the tears and the flashcards, and you know, and to try and make me like feel more comfortable about it, you know.
You know what I find interesting is that, even us discussing this right now, I'm sure when we think about our kids and their situations that they go through with girls, boys, whatever, we would want them to come to us so that we could come and talk about our experiences, kind of help them and guide it through. But if we take a look back at us, right? Like I would never have thought I would go to my mom about a girl or or whatever like that. And just like Mike said, and just like you said, you guys didn't talk about your feelings, and it's just weird because like we expect our kids to talk to us about it. We want to talk to them about it. We want to help them, but we ourselves didn't even do that or try to do that when we were younger, And now that we're on the other side of it, right? We're the parents now. We want to help them. We want to be there. So I wonder if our own parents felt the same way,
Well, I feel like from, something that dawned upon me, because I think we're having a big therapy session, the three of us right now, is really like, it's funny too, because Sarah and I were talking before, we're like, I feel like it's gonna, like we're going to change the intro to be like, on This Week in Therapy. So with exactly. What I was thinking about is, and I really, man, it dawned upon me about how I felt with my parents, and now I'm like had some major self reflection as you guys are talking, and I'm like, oh God, what have I done? It's I think there's this feeling, and whether you're accurate, this is my feeling. So you guys can tell me like, dude, you whatever, you know what I'm talking about. But in my circumstance, I feel like there was a definite like a checkoff list. It was like to like almost like follow the path. In this case, do you feel like your parents would approve of the situation? Yes or no? If you felt that your parents were not going to approve of anything revolving around the conversation,
don't talk to them.
You would not bring it up. And you know what? Like that stinks too, because like I'm realizing that now as a parent, like you really are closing the door off. If you give the general inclination that something you gave off some sort of emotion or feeling that you're not really you don't approve of a situation, it kind of almost means that when a circumstance occurs where that somehow is in the periphery of your kid, they may not want to talk to you about it because like they already have this preconceived notion that you're going to be like, you know how I feel, you messed up, I don't want to talk to you about it.
You are speaking truths right now. Those situations have happened to me with Lucas and my other kids. Like, Dad, I want to tell you something. And I'm like, okay, but you're going to get mad. I'm like, no. I'm not going to get mad. Tell me.
I will get mad, but tell me anyway.
And then he says it, and you're right. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe that's happening. I'm like, okay, stay cool. You told him you weren't going to get mad, and then, I try to play it off as cool as could be, and meanwhile, I'm like, okay, I'm back in my room like, oh my God, I can't believe that just happened. I can't believe, I got to tell Taylor, I got to figure this out, but you're so right, Mike. You are so right, because you don't want to scare them away from talking to you, and trying to figure it out and help them out,
Yeah, because you really, isn't that wild? Like in a sense, like maybe I was totally wrong, and maybe I was off in that way, but like I already closed the door in the conversation. Right. By already believing that whatever the thing was that I was going to bring to them, they already were going to say like, we don't approve of what you did. Like, you messed up, or you should have done this. So I don't even want to like even go near that conversation, which obviously that's on me too. Like, that's my thing. That's not, that's me dealing with like my own, whatever it was, insecurities or whatever I was dealing with. But at the time, like that felt like, nope, this isn't an option. So I kind of have to like these moments we were talking about this, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to change everything for next week. I'm going to tell my kids everything's okay, do whatever you want. But I feel like there's definitely, that's kind of going through my head. The other thing that I kind of remember, and I think that, maybe you guys obviously, I jumped right into like the part in time where like we were, I'm thinking more like in terms of like that high school time where like, there was a time about, starting to apply for colleges and things like that. And that was like a definite kind of interesting feeling too, because you had these like where things, in some ways things became very more like, in high school, for me at least, it was very cliquey. And then when you got towards like 11th grade, senior year, that started to kind of fade away a little bit, and people more started to hang out in different groups, and it wasn't such a big thing. But then like it started to kind of sort of amp up a little bit again. And I think there was a lot of like stress with the idea of applying to colleges. And I remember for me, when I was applying to colleges, my SAT scores, like I could not get them high enough. And I applied to Clemson and I didn't get in at first. And they were like, you could try if you could raise your SAT scores. So I was like, that's it. I'm doing this. And I worked really hard at it. And I took some classes. I got some flashcards. I did like the world's crummiest software for raising your SATs and like clicking on flashcards, whatever it was. And I got it to where I needed to go and I got in and all that stuff. But like, there was a big stress. Like that could put you over the edge. Like this moment where like your whole future set in front of you. And like everyone is kind of like waiting for those envelopes to come every day, and like what's going to happen, who's going where, what's everyone doing, and that big moment where everything starts to split off. But that's something that's like that'll definitely build some oomph, you know, in your life with this whole time where it starts to like figure out what happens after high school.
I think that's like the biggest thing. Like I know like we're joking around and stuff like that, but I think our goal is like to help build like resilience and like all that grit and like all those other hot topic words that people use nowadays, is that you want to have or be their inner voice when they're really struggling, you know? Yeah. So like you want them to kind of say, hey, what would mom or dad say in this situation? What would they advise me to do? Not so much like, do they approve of what's going on? But I think it's more now, or at least my goal, and I'm sure your guys' goal, is to like, when they're facing a tough moment, what would mom say I should do here? What would dad say? You know? And then obviously reach out for us, yelp for help when you need it. But you know, like that's my goal is for them. But like, you know, and I always like, but I use those phrases too, like Livy. Like I always say it to my kids. I'm like, yelp for help and stuff like that. But it's so true. Like, you know, but I want them to like say, okay, you know what? Like I am really, I'm not doing well in this, I don't feel confident going into this tryout. What would mom say? My mom would say, you got this, try hard. I've been doing this. I've been doing that. Now I'm gonna all I can do is give my best, you know? So I want them to make that like internal dialogue that they have be all like that good positive stuff that like I want to feed them, you know?
I feel like that's really solid because like you're kind of going into it without like a preconceived notion. You're kind of going with like a list of like strategies and like ways to deal in a situation. Like how do you work your way out? Like if it's an escape room, like how do you get out of there? And I feel like that's a big thing because you're not going in there being like, well, shouldn't have been there in the first place. Good luck, you know?
Right.
But I think that's important, you know? I don't know if this necessarily fits 100%, but there's this guy, Sahil Bloom. I think he's a baseball player. Once again, Go Sports. Why do I follow sport people on Twitter? Like, it's really bizarre. So
Sports is great.
Yeah, I mean, totally. I love foosball. So he said something really interesting, and he was saying that essentially the you know, he does these things where like he writes like it's very life coachy where he talks about like a certain situation that relates to sports and kind of follows up with like, you know, like part 1 of 17 Twitter paragraphs and it goes on and on, but they're really good. And one of the things that he was talking about was how reliability will take you much further than brilliance. How this idea is never bet against a person who keeps showing up. And I think like he kind of showed like some examples, and the idea the long term is if you look at like, you know, just the interest over time. He was using like financial stuff as like a way to reason this, but the idea is like the consistency of just showing up every day and working hard at something should not be something that people look past as a thing that doesn't count, because like the idea is like not only do you just show grit, you have to show consistency. You have to show like the effort and willingness to go in every day and work hard, because like that's like work ethic. And I think like we try that. We've talked about it in other episodes, kind of like routines and things that we do at home, but then like that gets you so far. And then from there, you have to kind of start to have some confidence. You have to believe in yourself. You have to have those tools and hear those voices of like Sara D in your head of like, okay, this is rough. What's going to happen? And like, you have that mentality, and I'm like the big joking idiot. And I'm like, okay, guys, what's the worst possible case? What's the worst thing that could happen? Right. And I think like for me, that's my approach. And obviously maybe I need to be a little sarcastic, but like we joke around about like we take some humor in it of like, what's the worst thing that could possibly happen? And then we go really, really too far. But then like the idea is like, like once you establish like what's the worst thing that can happen, then you can go from there. And then it's like, okay, cool. Are you still going to be fine? You can still be alive tomorrow? Yes. Great. Are you, could this maybe not go super well? Fine. Are we going to move forward? Yes. So why not try it? Work your butt off. You're proud of here. You got as far as you can. And that's a great thing. And I think like one thing that really helped me, and maybe kind of shifting the conversation, is there are some things where you could be with your kids and like kind of like helping them or kind of standing by them. But there's really are sometimes as parents, and I think this happens maybe when they're like sort of like, in elementary school, like that age at some point. And Taekwondo kind of came to mind because with my guys, there's always, and Mike, I think you probably have this with your son, even though it's not Taekwondo, it's different martial arts, but there's usually a part when they do these tests for their belts where in the moment you do a series of things that you've trained for, and then you have to do a breaking segment. You have to break a board. You have to do something that involves a thing where you're destroying, so you're breaking something, you're doing something. So this part of it is you're either doing it or you're not. And you kind of have to kind of keep going at it. Either you're going to do it or you're going to give up, and no one gives up. You got to just do it. And there's this distinct feeling, and I'm telling you, it is like sweat on the back of your neck. It is a feeling of like, oh my God, like I can't actually help you right now. This is on you. I'm on the sidelines. I have no power in helping you whatsoever. Yeah. And like this sort of brings me feeling back to like when, giving birth, and my wife, with that stuff is like, you're really like, you're just there to support the person, but you really are not able to, you can't help them through it. You're just there to support them. And in that moment as a parent, when you're watching your kids struggle and they're crying and they're working hard and, and they're doing it, there was this amazing moment with one of the masters who was like, look, you've done this before. Like I've seen you do this at the dojang, like with us, not at the test, but you've done this. It's time you're going to do this now. And I know that like, obviously the pressure's on, everyone's watching, but there's moments as parents where like we are on the sidelines and all we could do is just hope that the conversations we had with them and like the positive thoughts that we're trying to like shoot through the air
vibes
or whatever it is that we're hoping that they're being received. Hopefully it's going to the right kid. But I mean, there's like, whatever it is, but like, holy schmolies, like I'm telling you, like that is like you walk through that. I feel like I need like a shower afterwards. I'm sort of sweating and like, I'm like, oof, like that is, man. But like that's a big shift, like from this idea of like being part of the conversation and being with them, but to just be like, I'm watching this and I hope this goes well. Yeah. Have you guys had, I'm sure like between Sophia with doing the gymnastics and then judo and all that stuff, and then Mike, your son, with everything. I guess between dance and your son doing it happens.
No, but I feel like that's the scariest feeling is like, you hope that you've built your kids up, that you've taught them how to overcome an obstacle, and then they're out on their own having to do the breaking of the boards, do the flip, meet the team, get on the team, and you're just hoping that they push through it, And when they like, so have you faced when your kids actually face disappointment? Like, what do you guys do? Like when they don't do those things,
Yeah, this reminds me of two situations that I had with my kids. With Lucas, we were at the dinner table and he's like, we were talking about baseball and he was talking to his family counsel. He was like, Mom, Dad, I don't know how I feel about baseball. I'm not really good. Sometimes the kids say things, and I'm just, I don't know if I could do it. And now here I am sitting there at the table with Taylor. We're looking at each other. I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to say to this kid? Like here it is, the struggle's there. Kids are saying things about him. He's not feeling it, and again, this goes back to what I was saying about sports. Like I don't even want Lucas to, I don't think he's going to be like the next, big baseball player in MLB. I just want him to be in a sport, to learn a lot of things that sports teach you, I feel. And I'm like, how do I help this kid keep pushing through? So then, it came to me that as I'm sitting there talking to him, I'm like, Lucas, you may not be the best player. You may feel that some of the things that the kids are saying may be right, or you may feel like you want to quit, but you need to show them that you belong, and I kind of was thinking about what you said, Mike, in when you were swimming, when you were younger, and this is what I was trying to teach Lucas, is that, you don't have to be good, but show them that you can be there. You can be a part of baseball if you like it. Don't let other people take baseball away from you. And he does like baseball. And I gave him the example of when I was younger and in football, and how I was slow, stocky, but I made a name for myself in my own way. They called me the cheese, and slipping through the line. And, I wasn't good. I wasn't like the best football player in the world, but I made a name for myself, and I showed them that I belong on that field to play football too. And sure enough, Lucas goes to the game like literally 2 days after we had this conversation, and he's up to bat. And I'm like, me and Taylor are looking at each other. We're like about to cry because we don't know what's going to happen. We're praying to the gods of everything.
Yep. You're just giving up your own religion. You're like, I'll take you.
Anybody right now, and he gets up to that bat, and it's a strike, it's a ball, and finally the pitch comes and he hits the ball, and he doesn't just hit the ball, he hits the ball and he gets on first base, and then, he didn't go around the whole bases, he didn't score because like the next person got out, but he comes off the field, and he comes out from the dugout, and he comes to me and he goes, Dad, I did it, And it was like the greatest feeling in the world, because like everything you say to them, like I'm telling him at the dinner table, Bud, you're going to have to struggle. That's part of life. You got to find your way. You got to show them you can make it. You got to make your own name for yourself, and you don't know when you're telling your kids these things, if it's going to land, if they're going to hear it. You just hope there's, that's, and I guess that's why I love Star Wars so much, because it gives you so much hope, right?
I mean, not if you want to hold it to your arms or your hands, or there's daddy issues. It's fine. It's
a whole bunch of other issues, but anyway, my point is, like, it just worked out for Lucas there. And real quick with Elliot, a similar experience happened in basketball, where I see her on the sideline, she's crying, and I'm in the stands, and I go over to her, I call her over, I'm like, sweetie, what's up? What's going on? And she's just like starts downpour crying, like, Dad, this girl, she's really tough. She's pushing me. She's punching me. And I said, baby, look at me. Right now is not the time to cry. I was like, as soon as you get home, we will cry as much as you want. Daddy will cry with you, but you got to get out. You got to get out there and you got to fight back. You got to show her that you can play basketball too, And sure enough, she went out, and again, she went out there, did her thing. Everybody was like, oh my God, Elliot's so aggressive. She's crazy. I'm like, all right, maybe a little too much, Elliot.
I love it.
But
she's like, my dad said I could do this.
Yeah. But it was a great feeling for both. I have those memories with both my kids, and I always wonder, when they get older, will they remember like those moments where that struggle came and they were able to overcome it,
Right.
And yeah, so that was great.
I also think it's about like being realistic with your children. Do you know what I mean? Like, so like I was realistic with myself. Kick line, I know I didn't practice. So, and I'm 4'10". Like there was no way at that time, because I grew during high school. I wanted to get to 5 feet. But I knew
as far as I'm
realistically.
concerned, I'm going to be looking for you at the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, so I won't ever stop looking.
Oh my God.
But like I was realistic, and like my chances were, so like Julian just recently tried out for the soccer team. He made it, but he was nervous as a 6th grader, new to the school, didn't know what the competition was going to look like. And we were like, listen, you just putting yourself out there as the new guy in a new school setting, that you're already winning in our eyes. Like that was amazing.
Yeah.
And now you trying like, like to know like, hey, listen, like, let's be realistic. You're in 6th grade. You may or may not make the team. There might be a whole bunch of 7th and 8th graders on the team. So you may not make it. So we kind of set the expectation, like, let's be realistic. You're trying your best. You practice a little bit. You know what happens if you don't make it? You try again next year then if you really want it.
Yeah.
And there's also other clubs or activities and other sports to join as well, So but I don't think that means like setting a ceiling on them either.
I was just going to ask you that.
Like
yes.
I think being realistic is different than saying like, oh, this is all you can achieve,
Right. Like how do you find balance in that? Because like I feel like we got some kickback from that recently with Jacob, because we were like kind of saying like, oh, you know what? You go out there, you try, it may not go well, but like he's like I think he kind of almost gave us that facial reaction or that look of like why are you setting the bar there? Like almost like, or like he kind of like was like, oh, another, another life lesson, but it was like, it's funny. And like, maybe that's just growing up, like pushing your parents a little bit because you have to be independent. But I think like they could easily also think like, we think that we have to set the bar low because maybe they think that we're only believing they're capable of a certain experience. They can only go so far. So you're right. You have to kind of like straddle the line a little bit, because I think, Sarah, you must have like picked up on that and already made changes with your words and how you describe things. But I was more in the mess. I more made the mistake where it sounded like I am always setting the bar too low.
And I think it also comes down to their expectations, though. Like, kids, when they join something or they do something, I think they automatically think sometimes that they're going to be amazing at it. They're going to be great at it, Yep. Like you said, Sarah, it's like being realistic. And I think that's what I was trying to do with Lucas that night, was just be, hey, listen, you haven't played baseball in forever. You have to, you can't just expect to join the team and be amazing. You got to get up, you got to practice, you got to throw the ball, and you got to show them that you like this game and you want to be a part of it and you can play too,
Exactly. I think what it is from at least my experience, because I've also had that kind of feeling where Jacob was, where in terms it was where it's like, are you setting the standard low for me, or you don't think I could do it? But it's kind of like asking them, checking in with them, how are you feeling about this activity?
Right.
Or about this moment. Are you confident or are you nervous? If you're confident, then I'm gonna build you up, brother man. I'm gonna tell you, yo, you got this. You're a bad little kid. You got this. You got the swing. You got the kick.
This is not the time for crying.
Yeah, you got the flip. This is your sport. Or this is your activity. This is your strength. But if they're feeling kind of nervous, that's when you're kind of like, all right, like, listen, like Levine said, like, you haven't practiced in a bit. We're a little rusty, but you know what? You're trying. That's good.
Yeah.
And then they kind of talk about like, they kind of almost do what you did, like you say, Mike, like he's height, where you're like, well, what's the worst case scenario? And I've done that with Julian before. Like, what's the worst case scenario? You don't make the team. So what do we do? All right, we might cry a little bit, but what other activities are there for you to do? Oh, okay. Yeah. So try it, man. Like, let's go out. Let's try it.
I like you said that like explicitly, like ask them, where do you want to go with this?
Yeah. Like, I mean,
like what do you need from me right now?
Right. Like, it's kind of saying like, I think that's how G and I we do stuff. It's like, how are you feeling about this? All right. Now I know, like, I'm going to go this way with you or that way with you. Not
which
just
box are you checking off? Yeah.
Yeah. Like
but that's like so obvious when you say it out loud.
Words like that. Yeah. Listen, it's taken time,
Why are the things that seem so easy and so obvious the best ones that like I never do? Like, that's so smart. Oh my God, that's incredible.
Yeah.
So like the other thing that kind of like seems to fit into this, and I think like, granted, like every kid's different, like Noah is like giving us a run for our money, and like, we have to like in the morning
Why is it
every
always
day.
the last one?
Always.
Yeah.
So I mean, look at the Jedis. But yeah, no, there was like a whole thing where like he was getting a little bit of trouble, like with his hands and stuff. And like every day I'm like, I write him a note. This is going to be a good day. We're not going to use our hands. We're going to ask before we use our hands, like this, that, and the other. And then like, I'll like, draw him a card, and then we talk about it. We have a reward system. Like we were like doing like every possible thing again. And it's like, that's different. Like we're having to show him, we're also trying to cut into his confidence too. So that's like a balance. But then I have like, I have Jacob who's trying for basketball, and he has low confidence and doesn't think he's as good as he actually is. And the coach, he's doing like a private like clinic thing, and the coach is like, no, you're doing good. Like, try it. What's the worst gonna happen?
Yeah.
Right.
And then I have on the other side, I have Ethan, who is kind of terrified of breaking for his black belt, who started doing Taekwondo again. And he doesn't really care if he gets his black belt or not. He just wants to go to class and enjoy doing it. And like, I'm like, this guy's like in his 30s. He's my kid. But he's like, he doesn't care. Like, he just wants to experience it and be around it and do the things. And when he's ready for it, he's going to let the master know, and then they're going to do it. And it might be this year. It might never happen, but he doesn't care. Yeah. And I think that's so cool that that's where he is right now. And I love that that's cool. Let's just do that, you know? But I think like everybody's different, and like knowing that every kid's personality in your own family, like what's I like Sarah. I'm gonna do what you're saying. I'm gonna ask them for now on. I'm like, how do you see yourself doing this? Which one did you check again? Tell me the answer. And then it's like almost like Kramer with movie phone. But yeah, no, I mean that's like definitely one of those things. So the question this week for you parents at home is, what have you tried to support your children with when they've gone through hard times that has been successful? And what are the things that have not been successful for you? We'd love to hear from you. If you'd like to answer this question, have comments or questions for the show, you can get in touch with us in one of three ways. You can leave a message on our Hey the Parents voicemail line at 559-537-5437 or 559-LEKIDS. You can email the show at heytheparents@gmail.com or check the notes for social media in our show notes. So we are now on the part of the show where we call it Time to Unplug. This is where we talk about the things that are going on outside of the children, because sometimes you just have to have something for yourselves or ourselves with our spouses. And it gives us a chance to decompress, because you know what? You'll be a better we if you take care of me. So Sarah D, what is that thing for you? Oh. And I need somebody else to rhyme with. I don't know.
So there I was at Sky Zone as the kids that I took with me are jumping around, having a great time, and I'm slightly bored. And,
with ice packs in your hand, like,
yes,
yeah.
And I'm like, la, la, la. So, and with a million drinks. So, Tubi, I downloaded it because I was like, I'm bored. And
weirdest intro song ever, right? Tubi, Tubi, Tubi.
Is it? Oh, I wasn't.
Yeah, it's bizarre. You're like, it's jarring.
Sorry. But that's okay. So I found Escaping the Madhouse with Nellie Bly, and I think it was like went out like in 2019 or something like that. So it's, if you don't know your history, folks, it's about the muckraker journalist Nellie Bly, who actually got herself into an asylum to reveal the mistreatment of people.
No way.
Of course, because I'm a history buff and I like history. I'm a history nerd, but it also had like a little scary component to it. Like, so it was like based on the true story, but it was like a little more darker and drearier. Christina Ricci's in it, who I love, the original Wednesday Addams, and or at least the 1990s Addams that we know, because the original, I don't know her. But it was, I enjoyed it. It was a good watch. You know what? It made the time go by. It was entertaining, and yeah. I recommend it.
Nice.
Very cool. It was fun and good stuff. And it was making me feel like I should probably be doing more higher level of reading, because like, what's funny? I'm going to put it. Mike Levine, what do you got, my friend with the robot of nature?
Or lower level reading. So my pick today is The Wild Robot. Actually, I know we usually pick things to unplug from our kids, and this is a thing me and Ellie started. We started a book club, and me and her kind of read books together. So I started reading The Wild Robot, and like eventually I'll talk to her about it as we read it. And I actually kind of like it. I'm so busy reading all these other things that are, I guess for older adults, and I kind of like just, being on my own, reading, a curious little robot getting stranded on an island.
I think you're just trying to like connect it to Star Wars in some way, even though it's
So it's pretty cool. So I definitely, I would throw out there, if you're looking for something fun and kind of not so adult and just kind of get back into your old childhood, read a kid book. They're fun.
Love it.
Ethan was just telling me he actually just read the Wild Robot. He said they read it in class. He really liked it. The movie was okay. The book was really good.
Yeah, it's really good. What about you, Mike?
Speaking of books, this is tying it all together now. This is everything. This is
Here
check it out. I was waiting. I didn't know what I was going to do with this. Like sometimes, like I have these grand aspirations I want to read, and I do. But and sometimes what I'll do is I'll read a book and at home at night, and then I'll get the audiobook and I'll like listen to it in the car. So I call it hybrid reading. But in this case, I'm going straight car because I don't have time. So there's this straight up car. Yeah. So there's this Mike and I. For years, like Mike and I, we met, Sara, Mike and I actually worked together for a short time. And when I first met Mike, we were like, we talked about video games, and somehow miraculously we played a whole lot of Blizzard Entertainment games for a long time. And one thing that was very interesting is like just hearing all these stories about Blizzard Activision and all the problems they went through. And like, you know, people fall in love with the company, they thought they were great, and then all of a sudden, you know, the paint started to peel back and all these negative things happen with the company. So this journalist who's great, Jason Schreier, wrote a series of books about video games. He worked for Bloomberg at different companies, and does a podcast called Triple Click. And one of the things that he worked on most recently was a book all about Blizzard Entertainment. And it is, man, like if you want to be a fly on the wall and learn about everything that happened with the company. He talked to, I think, 300 different people from the company, people that worked in the company at different times, programmers, art directors, people that knew of the people in the company that went to different conferences and like worked in the industry at the same time. They were in California. This is great. So if you didn't know in general what I'm referring to, Blizzard Entertainment is the company that makes Diablo, StarCraft, World of Warcraft, Overwatch, all those games. And they're most famous probably for StarCraft in Korea and Warcraft in you know, the United States, and then World of Warcraft, you know, internationally. And it talks all about the growing pains of the company, how they amped up really, really quickly, and all this crazy stuff happened where they were like almost like a frat, where they were with the way they treated the organization and would go out partying, and how all of these things kind of coalesced into these crazy moments. And it's really crazy the fact that this is real. So if you have any sort of association with that, you know, that game, that genre, or just kind of want to know, the audiobook's pretty good. I like listening to it. And so far, yeah, I'm probably about 2 hours in out of the 9 hours, and I'm really loving it. It's really entertaining. The stuff that I'm hearing about, like, I'm not going to ruin it. So, you know, you're going to really like it. I think it's great. So, so I'm going to finish it, and then I can tell you that I will, without a doubt, I already know what my one more thing is next week, because it has to do with vampires in Staten Island. So we're going to get to that. Ooh. So I think we're just about out of time. It's been so much fun hanging out on this episode for Building Resilience. We talked about all the sports. We talked about dance. We talked about crying. We talked about not crying. We talked about Moana. We talked about all the things that kind of go through our heads as parents as we watch our kids. And we say sometimes, hey, what do you need right now? Do you want me to beef you up, or do you want me to just talk you off the ledge? But either way, we kind of found our way to kind of help our kids and learn from each other, because I know I did. And we talked all about the things that we needed to get through to understand better how to support our kids through these hardships. I would just take a moment to thank our listeners and supporters for donating to the show. If you want to help support the show so we can keep making shows just like this one with different topics, we have a link to donate in the show notes if you don't have the means to do so. We appreciate when you tell your friends or family about the podcast so we can reach more listeners, and maybe we can learn from them and they can learn from us in this growing community. If you have a chance, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It helps people find the show. And we cannot wait to explore this parenting thing again with you next week on Hey the Parents, because every week it's an honest discussion about raising kids. Don't forget to hug your kids and charge those Chromebooks. That's going to do it for me, for Mike, and for Sara. We will see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Hey the Parents is produced by Mike Levine, Sara Desirines, and me, Michael Haidt. I edited and mixed our show. Our intro voice recording was done by the one and only Coltrane. If you like our show, we hope that you consider going to our show notes and help support the podcast. Check out the show notes for social media information and contacts, and we look forward to seeing you next time.